Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Tracy Goynix, and I'm the Director of the Technology Management MBA program. Tonight, we have Mary Alice Colvin here from Cayman Consulting. I met Mary Alice at an event at Microsoft, a Foster MBA event, and we sat at the same table and struck up a conversation and then corresponded via email afterward. She has a strong background and passion for digital marketing, and I think that's one area that we need to grow within both the eMBA and Team MBA programs as far as content. So I thought it would be good to have a little bit of that here tonight and have it be an interactive discussion, and feel free to ask questions. We'll wrap up around 8:30, so enjoy, and let's welcome Mary Alice.
Thank you, Tracy. So it is a pleasure to be back here at Foster. I graduated a few years back in the Executive MBA program and really got a lot out of the MBA program here. Digital marketing is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and one of the reasons it is I used to be a technology manager, and I found it really a challenge to shift into finding the value of marketing when my job expanded and that became part of my expected wheelhouse. And one of the things that I found is that, for example, I went to the Harvard Strategic Marketing Management program, and even though I thought it was interesting to follow the case study method, I really didn't see a lot of tips that I could just grab onto and go back and use in my day job. And I think we all have a lot of time pressures and financial pressures, and you're supposed to connect with your customers, and you're supposed to do all these great things. And imagine you actually had another member of your team that was able to help you add value, help you add the voice of the customer, help you to really get more data about, should you offer product A or should you offer product B? How might you price that product? And so digital marketing really allows you to gain digital engagement insights. Some of you are in the area of business intelligence as deeply vested within your wheelhouse. There's an opportunity to capture some of that BI opportunity when engaging with your customers. I'll go through a number of examples and give you my top 10 tips. So I want to tell you a little bit about Cayman. We work with PayPal, eBay, we've done work with Boeing, a lot of active work with Microsoft, educational organizations, small organizations, medium size, and public sector. We also have a number of clients that really value the range of services that we provide and have won a number of awards. So about our services, we do functional work in a number of areas across sales and service and marketing, including digital marketing, HR, IT, and operations. And we also lead the thinking, leverage the technology, and really take program ownership. So a little bit about me. I mentioned the Harvard program. I did my undergrad at Stanford, and then most importantly, I'm a UW graduate. I did a number of years of work at Apple Computer, and it's been very interesting to see how the insights that I gained there around managing a community and the challenges of integrating digital with our day jobs, some of those tips are going to be reflected today. I did a number of years at Microsoft and have been at Cayman Consulting. I have two girls that keep me very busy, and my husband is a full-time artist, and he's also made the transition from a bricks and mortar, having art shows in galleries, to really have a significant amount of his business is now digital. So my first tip is around integrating digital marketing into your work. You might think of marketing and digital marketing as something that somebody else in your company may or may not be doing, and then it might not be relevant to you. And I really think that's a myth. There's an opportunity to transform from your perception of traditional marketing, which is probably like this guy, just blasting to people who really didn't want to hear it. That was the worst part of traditional marketing. Not targeted, not specific, not relevant. There are some aspects of traditional marketing that are still highly relevant. Like if Nick gives a reference to Wayne about a product, or if that shaving product that was mentioned earlier in today's class, that might be something that, oh, Joe may consider that now that you've heard, yeah, there is this premium shave option. So that word of mouth is still one of the most powerful assets, and there's no replacement for face-to-face. There will be some people who are watching this video, but it's probably not going to be the same experience, and they're also not going to get the cool tchotchkes that I'm going to give out to the people who interact most. So there is a value to that human connection, to that face-to-face. There's also this really amazing intersection of social, mobile analytics, cloud, SMAC, some people call it. So social isn't just something that our kids are using and some of our friends are slightly addicted to. Social really has an opportunity to provide some early insights to your products and services. So I worked with a major phone provider, mobile phone provider, and we got insights about the daylight savings time annoying bug that was available, or it wasn't a feature, it was a bug, that essentially it would go ahead and text and annoy people at about midnight around daylight savings. All the calendar items would be reset, and so you'd get woken up by all these notifications. And then people typically miss their meetings the next day because they were an hour off. We found that through social media monitoring, through community monitoring. And so we saw it very early on when it was just a small group of people who were using the latest, greatest product. We caught that. 2 years later, Apple got slammed in the press for having a daylight savings time issue, a bug that they hadn't found in their monitoring. And it's not often that we get to say, well, we found something before Apple did. And so that was pretty exciting to be able to use social monitoring for that. In terms of mobile, mobile is really hot. One of your colleagues was just talking about how so much of her marketing world has been transformed into mobile. We're definitely seeing that across the space, and really planning in your business to look at what's the mobile experience going to be for your customers. And I know that some of you are in a range of industries. Let me just do a quick round of hands for, do we have anyone from PACCAR here today? I think the gentleman with PACCAR left, which is good because I'm going to pick on him a little bit later. And then we've got a number of Microsoft people, don't we? Okay. And then anybody who consults to Microsoft or partners with Microsoft. Okay, and then we've got healthcare, don't we? And you're in the, you tell me your company again? It's like, yeah, Joe. Joe, yeah.
My company's American Seafoods Group. It's
yep.
seafood and vegetables.
Yep, that's great. And then, Joe, or Nick, what was your business?
Oh, actually, currently student.
Great, great. Wayne?
Scientific research.
That's right. And so anyone else in the medical industry, medical, healthcare? Yeah, yeah, thank you. Okay, great. And all of you are technologists and managers. There's an opportunity to leverage the cloud and analytics, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So I've given you a cross-section of social networking tools and photo, video sharing, search engines, aggregators. There's a lot to the social marketplace. Can anyone other than my colleagues name the Microsoft internal social networking product and not the Microsoft gentleman in the back? So does anyone know? Yeah.
Yammer.
Yes. So I'll start giving out, I'm giving out little gifts and then it grows. So just think about the more you interact, the more you have the opportunity to win big gifts. Thank you. Wait, is it good?
You didn't mention Boeing. I welcome Boeing.
Thank you. We had so many Boeing. Yes. Yes. And when I was in the MBA program, we did have a number of Boeing folks. So how many of you are at Boeing? Great. Excellent company. Thank you. My second tip, start simply and simply start. So I mentioned my colleague that was at PACCAR when we went through the Executive MBA program. And frankly, I really never knew what she did. I didn't know what PACCAR was. And in preparation for this talk, since I had seen that a number of your colleagues are with PACCAR, I went up to the PACCAR Wikipedia site. And it was interesting. There was not only history, but there's a whole area of issues and criticism. It was significant. It's about, I'd say it's about a fifth of the Wikipedia page. Each of you have a business or an area of expertise or an area of passion. You each have unique contributions to make to this world. And I bet you there is a Wikipedia page that does not fully reflect your knowledge, your skills. And when I went up to the digital marketing Wikipedia page, when I first went up there, I was so disgusted by just this spattering of random stuff. There aren't any practical tips. And I went ahead and just started authoring it. 2 minutes later, my edits are up there. And it's really empowering to see, oh, okay, you know, I have an idea. And if it's got some data behind it, it'll immediately show up. So I encourage you to do that. And one of the things that I was going to recommend to the PACCAR folks, but you can see this as an example, is on their website. I took a number of snapshots from their website and put it into the Wikipedia overlay just for simplicity. But they have this really cool truck, like configure your own truck. So instead of preparing for this talk, I'm like doing my own custom truck, and I made it red, and, yeah. And I learned about all the different stuff underneath, which I've now forgotten. But they've got a lot of substantial contributions that they've made to the Pacific Northwest. They helped to build the Space Needle. Does anybody else know about anything significant that PACCAR has done? Say that again? And you get a toy. Yeah, so they really were one of the folks that kept the Northwest going during the Depression. They were one of the only employers. So some pretty interesting examples out there, but I do challenge you to simply go up to your areas of interest, edit Wikipedia. If you're part of a large company, Boeing, your digital marketing colleagues probably wouldn't be thrilled if you added tons of stuff, but check with your digital marketing colleagues or think about your area in particular. Is there something that you want to make sure that the positive areas are reflected on Wikipedia? And people really do use that. SEO I have listed in the upper right, search engine optimization. That is a huge area. Tremendous amount of power in search optimization or just search in general. So 80+% of customers check online before they make a purchase, and that might apply to your products and services. My third tip is to engage with your audience. So Facebook does have over 1 billion active users worldwide, and it's really a substantial business tool. Have any of you used Facebook for a business purpose? Yeah, what has that been?
Oh, it's been great actually, I think. And not only Facebook, I think, even Twitter, LinkedIn, if you use it to engage with customers and have conversations, I think it's very important.
It is. It's very powerful and growing every day. Did I see another hand? Yeah.
We've used Facebook advertising to promote a specific event coming up because you can actually target geographically and by industry.
Yeah, that is really huge. I think my husband on his last art show, his last physical art show, spent something like $25 and got hundreds of people, and it was just very targeted. People who have these kinds of interests, people who are searching for this kind of word, and it's pretty amazing. We got people as far as Seattle coming all the way out to the east side, and it was just a powerful tool. The example I added here, this is a nonprofit organization that some of us had worked with called Mammosphere, and they store mammograms in the cloud. And it's an area where it's really hitting on both that cloud opportunity and the need to improve healthcare. So essentially, a lot of women change healthcare providers now, and you change companies, you change locations, and a mammogram, just like most digital and medical issues, is if you see the past one compared to the next one, that's really the indicator of, oh, is this cancer? Is there something to look out for? And you can detect cancer much earlier if you have access to those mammograms and can compare them year over year. So Mammosphere has a nice LinkedIn presence, a nice Facebook presence, and then what they've done on Facebook is gone ahead and posted things like videos. So this is a breast cancer patient, Nicole, who does comedy around breast cancer. And as you know, it's really important to understand who your audience is and have somebody who's probably within that audience to actually connect with them. So if my colleague Tim did a comedy video, he's an amazing comedian, and yet if he were asked to do the Mammosphere comedy, I don't think it would go over very well. I mean, no offense, Tim. But here, this breast cancer survivor, Nicole, is able to really connect. People can really enjoy that comedy, and it's just a powerful mechanism. So I do encourage you to reach out to your marketing colleagues and your digital marketing colleagues and see, is there a way to bring that extra level of engagement that Facebook has to offer? So 75% of marketers acquire customers through Facebook, just a very powerful tool. So my next tip is to be realistic and plan for sustainability. In the last class, where some of you had an opportunity to talk about lifetime customer value, it's very important to think about how you're going to engage with your customers over a lifetime. And I know that might sound like a contrast to my, start simply and start now. But essentially, it's really important to think about, you can take some small steps with customers digitally, but don't go start a blog and post every day for 5 days and make big announcements and then do nothing for a month and then do nothing for 6 months. That is one of the biggest mistakes that I see folks do, especially around blogs, is to think, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to blog every week, and to not plan for, sometimes you're going to be sick, sometimes you're going to be busy, sometimes you're going to be on vacation. And so if you're going to have a blog presence, like what we do at Cayman, we share it amongst all of our consultants, and when we have something we really want to say, then we queue that up for the next blog. So think about what is realistic given your and your colleagues' area of specialty and what you have the bandwidth to keep up. And so 1 million new blogs do come online every month. I really love the Seahawks and football, and I was just looking at some of the stats around things like Nike football. So they have this 97% like-dislike ratio. And one of the things about the whole digital engagement area is you can really measure sentiment. You can measure all kinds of factors. And so sentiment is, what is depending on how sophisticated the tools you're using are, you can measure changes in when your customer is really satisfied with your products to when they start to get upset about something. And if you catch those customers who are some of your most passionate advocates, but have started to shift into being frustrated that something isn't working the way they want it to work, if you catch them in that sentiment shift, you really have an opportunity to get an advocate, to get a most valuable player onto your team. If you miss that, that person can bring a lot of negative press, negative colleagues to the game, and that can have a significant impact on your business. And so that is one thing that I really wanted to emphasize, not only planning for sustainability, but planning that you will need to have a digital engagement strategy at some point, even if it has nothing to do with your job description right now. That there will be some day when somebody claims something about your products or services or an area that you're passionate about that doesn't fully reflect the reality of what you know. And so think about where are the areas that you do want to start planning for contributing to that digital conversation, and you will be that much more ready if you end up getting impacted by some of that negative buzz, if you will, and you'll be ready to respond quickly, which is part of what's really key in this area. And then I provided an example here of just kind of the importance of digital marketing and in blogs cross-referencing to Facebook and to Google and to LinkedIn, that there's really an opportunity to express your unique talents, contributions of your product or your services through digital engagement. Okay, so think globally, act locally. How many of you have used Yelp in the last 3 months? Yeah. Phil, what have you used it for?
Just checking out bars.
Yeah. Was it pretty accurate?
Relatively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you contributed to a Yelp post yet?
I did one when I had a really bad experience.
Yeah.
That's the only time I ever done it.
And see, that's really interesting. There's a lot of data that supports that people are much more likely to make their first digital engagement when they're really upset about something. And especially if you've had good experiences and then you have a bad one, if something slips. So my lesson is start your level of quality really low and then you have and work up. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting area and something that can really impact your business. I had another example.
Oh, just for restaurants, because
yep.
I mean, for Seattle, for the Seattle area, it's actively used, and so there's a lot of people that contribute a lot of content.
Yep.
And just adds value.
Yep.
To that.
Yep. And that's another great comment is that the network effect, right? That some of these things, I remember when LinkedIn I was involved in some projects when LinkedIn was pretty small, and I had a number of colleagues who were like, it'll never amount to anything, nobody has ever found a job with LinkedIn. Yeah, when it was a small group of people, you didn't find a job on LinkedIn. But now, I mean, how many people have used LinkedIn within the last week? How about the last day? Yeah, it's huge. And I mean, last hour, right now, actually, and that is going to be an assignment, so you are totally encouraged to bring up LinkedIn because that's going to be part of the best prizes. So in terms of thinking globally, how many of you interact with colleagues in India? Yeah, how about China? Yeah, how about rest of world? Anything else outside of North America? Yeah. Yeah, it's just a growing area of business, and as you know, digital marketing is really impacted by that too. Okay, so let's see if my clicker works. Prepare for speed, timing, and seasonality. So what I mean by this is that your digital marketing engagement and how you can start to connect digital marketing with what you do every day is to think about, are there gaps in maybe your testing schedule or your development schedule or your release schedule? Are there gaps where you or your team are not getting the information that you really need? Can anybody think of an example of where in your job right now you're not getting the kind of customer, voice of customer data about should you go with option A, option B? Does anyone have an example of something you're missing from your current product or service? Wow, you guys are impressive. Everything's perfect. Yeah.
So I think, so I work at Boeing on the working marketing. I think the challenge that we have from a digital marketing standpoint is that in our market space, we are B2B. So most often than not, our direct customer is going to be an airline. And although we can have a digital footprint out there, at the end of the day, the paying the person who's really going to pay for our product is an airline. So there is a little bit of a challenge when I'm looking at this and I'm trying to identify how relevant it is with what I do in the aviation market space.
That's right.
And,
yeah, it's a great point and question. So just to repeat that as an employee of Boeing and B2B, and having kind of that disaggregated customer experience, we've got so many layers of suppliers and experiences that your customers are going through to fly on a Boeing plane to China and back, yeah, it's a great point that it's much more difficult for those of us who are in industries where the supply chain is very complex. And I think that it is still relevant, but you're right, it's not as tangible where you're just going to get that immediate experience like we would from a restaurant review. I think that there are significant possibilities, but you're right, it's going to be a little bit more complex.
Yeah, so there are, so you go to, I think you all go to set guru. You're flying, you want to look at the airplane that you're going to fly.
Right.
At the end of the day, it may be a Boeing airplane, but it's really customized by the customer determines what they want.
Right.
In the seats. So are you going to say, well, it's a bad airplane because it's a Boeing airplane?
Right.
Or it's bad because it's Delta or
Right.
Alaska. So that's kind of the things that we deal with and figure out how we're going to ensure that we're getting positive reviews. But really, at the end of the day, we're focusing on our immediate customer.
Right.
Who's really buying the airplane as opposed to find what customer wants to find.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point with that Boeing example of, is it Delta? Is it United? Where is the issue? Or is it something with that actual plane? I think that one of the opportunities with digital marketing is when you think about this life cycle of traditional marketing to the customer, have they generated interest? In the case of Boeing, you've got people with that vested interest, I need to get from point A to point B. If they have a trial experience, for some of you there may be more of an opportunity for your customers to have a trial experience, and then we are talking about subscriptions, versus that, I'm a customer, I'm a real customer, I'm getting on the airplane. So there's this whole cycle, and there's an opportunity to time the communications and, for example, I've brought email up there. So one of the things that we found is that customers, so this is my little email, the blue, we found that customers will open an email if it is sent on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That if you send an email on a Friday or a Saturday, typically, unless it's about a bar or it's about a party, that open rate significantly decreases. Has anyone heard of how open rates are measured? Do you have a thought about how an open rate of an email is measured? Yeah.
So my guess would be is if you had an embedded link with a unique code and the user clicks on that link, then you start getting metrics off of that.
It's a good point. So the answer was if you have an embedded link, you can click on that. Yes, that gives you an additional set of data. So when you download pictures, when you click on download pictures, that actually sends which device you're working on, what's your browser, what time of day, if we have any other data about you, what that data is. It's pretty powerful. So open rate is not, you don't even have to open it. All you need to do is click download. But if you open, that is also that information, all your information about whether you were on a PC or a tablet, that is sent to the marketers. Then there's the click-through rate. So if you click on offer A versus offer B, that's measured. And then when you get to that end destination, if it's a website, we've done hover analysis. So say this were a website, and I could see how long did people hover over here versus here, and everybody ignored the upper right. And so there's a very sophisticated data available. What's powerful to those of you who do real product and service offerings versus those of us who are in the digital marketing space is that you can actually compare offer A and offer B and see which one actually got people to adopt your next step, your next call to action. So that's pretty powerful. We've also found that seasonality and planning for, when are people going to be flying on Boeing planes? Well, it's typically going to be huge around the holidays, right? And planning significantly ahead of time for when are your customers going to be purchasing over the year, over the months, over a given week. And if you really want to bury some bad news, send it or post it on a Friday afternoon in general, and that's the best time to get something hidden because everybody wants to go home, they want to go out, they don't want to be doing email or looking at a Twitter feed. So my next step is to be brief and be bright. So, yes, please.
No question. You're touching a lot of like different metrics, like through rate and so on. But so let's kind of take the example, or two employers you mentioned, the Apple versus Microsoft. Apple, I imagine, would care about the click-through rate because they have the store of their own site, and you can actually measure that. Yeah, that click-through actually resulted in this revenue generation. But Microsoft probably won't because their revenue is coming from mostly partner sales. So how do you determine what metric you want to follow?
Yeah. More and more marketing organizations are demanding every metric they can get their hands on. Back when we only did traditional marketing, for example, one of the things that we measured is in bringing people to a talk. How many butts in the seats? That's one of the things we measured. It's how many people came in and what was the cost per person to send out mailings, to make phone calls to get them in. But actually, Microsoft does have a very intense return on marketing investment set of measurements, and the teams really look at the full life cycle. And so part of it is looking at what are you held to as a technology manager, what measurements are going to help you in your next connect or your next review to really look great. That's one of the first things to focus in on. So are you trying to drive more revenue? Are you trying to increase customer satisfaction? Are you trying to move people to the cloud? Are you trying to move people to mobile? So depending on where you're measured, that's a really good indicator of, that's an area where you can look at what are the marketing metrics that could help me get there. And the more that you're able to show the data that supports, okay, what I'm doing actually has some value, or I thought we should innovate in this area, but you know what? We sent out a Twitter post, and we sent a Twitter feed, and we tweeted about, offer A, and we tweeted about offer B, and we got this huge pickup for offer B. That right there tells you something. If your market is out there on Twitter, you've gotten some information that will help you measure, okay, people really liked this offer more than that. So
yeah. So I guess, see if I'm going to rephrase to see if is what you're saying is, or what I understand. So trying to tie those marketing metrics or the metrics you're looking at, see if whether that's relevant or vanity metric based on driving more sales, tied to the dollars primarily.
I've seen a lot of that. We also, in the early days of some technology adoption projects, it was not about the dollars as much as it was about getting that network, getting the number of people actually using our products. Because there's certain products and services where until you've got that baseline set of customers, you might not make it through the early days of innovation as a startup. Or if you're a small group within a larger company, until you prove your value that you actually have passionate customers, then you may not make it to that next round of internal company funding.
Yeah.
So there is a measurement, I bet you, for the area that you're most challenged by. And if you can get that voice of the customer, it often is so much more powerful than any of us internally within an organization. There's just something about those quotes. I didn't take the time to show you the quotes on some of our company at the beginning, but hearing from one of our happy customers about how much they love our services and how we transform and help them measure and make more money, and super happy customers, hearing it from one of my customers is so much more valuable than hearing it from me. So you can tap into that voice of the customer, and I bet you your customers are talking about something relevant that would give you insights. So the measurements are out there, and part of what the real challenge now is to not look at just the disjointed data, but to look at the data in aggregate. So for example, some of the consulting we did for Microsoft in the early days of Office 365 was looking at the open rates of particular offers, the click-through rates, the trial conversions, so how many people trialed. After they trialed for X amount of time, how many people bought. After they bought, How long did they keep their subscription? Are they coming back still today? Are they referring friends and then, or colleagues? Is their whole company now converted to Office 365 because of that little marketing campaign that we did way back when? So it's looking at that whole life cycle that's really important. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, as you said, there's so many data points you can track. It's,
Yeah.
I guess the question I'm trying to get to is how do you say this metric actually matters versus that is just a random metric? Like LinkedIn tells me that how many people check me out. Doesn't do me any good.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I would say that any digital marketer or anybody who told you that this one measurement is going to be your best measurement is wrong. Because I would say any single data point is really just that. It's a single data point, it can be manipulated, and it can be misunderstood. So I think it's gathering the aggregate data and then finding those trends, finding the change, like I was talking with Mammosphere, about Mammosphere, that example. It's seeing the delta. Wow, for the last 3 years, every December was our big sales year, and then what happened this year? There was this big drop. And sometimes, unless you have that data, you don't know kind of what else is the opportunity there.
Okay.
Yeah, good question, and maybe you have to hire me as a consultant to. No. So the data is out there, and that's part of what I wanted to encourage you is to search what's out there. That you don't have to hire consultants to do your own background, and that likely your colleagues do have access to some of that data. And I suspect that also some of your traditional marketing colleagues and even some of your digital marketing colleagues, often they're measuring something really specific and granular that frankly might not be relevant to the overall product or service success. And so if you get to know them and partner with them, see what channels they're already using, and see if, hey, I have this question bugs me. Should I be, going in this direction or that direction? And see if they can embed your question as an A/B test into their next A/B test of whether the picture should be red or blue. So it can be more relevant than it's probably being used for today. So 53% of users recommend products in their tweets. I know that I've just seen so many examples of the uptake when someone tweets a product recommendation versus other. Okay, so maximize mobile, digital wallet, and Internet of Things. Our Internet of Things founders are in the back, who actually are the owners of H2O Observe. So this is an Internet of Things water bottle and entire service that has measurement of water quality and actually sends the data up to the cloud. So you can know if you're on Mercer Island and just experienced another water scare, wouldn't it be nice to know before it hits the news that actually what you're drinking might not be actually potable, let alone something that you'd want to bathe your kids in. So there is a real opportunity for innovative companies, for large organizations, for you with your cool idea to tap into the digital engagement environment and really see, is there an opportunity to link together IoT, Internet of Things, digital wallet, mobile into your experience. I provided a little graphic of a digital wallet, little pig on a phone up there. And I mentioned it to some of you who were here as part of the earlier talk, that we have found that when it comes to a digital wallet or when it comes to subscription digital communications, customers are so much more likely to actually pay attention to payment-based communications. So what I mean is, how many of you really have poured through the last marketing, spam, kind of direct mail that you got in your mailbox? So when was the last time you actually read it and then purchased something based on what you got in the mail? Anyone? 1992. Exactly. So it's been a while, and yet what we found is that customers really actually read their digital receipt information or their digital subscription information, and they will go ahead and engage in that manner if you're communicating through digital wallets. So you get the big mobile power. Okay, so we are almost at the end. You guys have been so patient. So focus on lifetime customer value and align with your values. So we've talked a little bit about how LinkedIn has 160 million LinkedIn members, over 2 million companies. I provided some LinkedIn information up here, and so now we're going to start to get to some of the cool stuff. So I've provided my LinkedIn, and then also I'll get to the Cayman Consulting LinkedIn. And for those of you who end up posting your tips up there or connecting with me, I have the last couple really cool prizes for you guys. So that is my challenge that I'll talk more about in a minute. Find your most valuable players. So there are advocates out there. There are people. There are probably, for example, for the Boeing gentleman, for your customers, there are probably some executive travelers who have tremendous insight on, they look at the type of plane before they decide to fly to China on a little plane versus a larger airplane. They may have feedback on what really would make that experience even more effective. For example, one of the things we found in the mobile space is that even though innovation sounds really cool, what do most people really want on their mobile devices? What do you really want for your mobile device? If you could have one thing, what would it be? Battery. Battery. At the end of the day, we want a longer battery life. We want more battery. So at Microsoft, one of the things that they have is a most valuable professional program. And this is Lindley Meslier. He is a MVP for one of the key areas of Microsoft. And in the day, he works at the US Embassy. That's his day job. And then he comes home and he puts in probably 5 hours every evening volunteering his knowledge as a community manager, as an MVP. It's amazing. One of the things that he really values in life is helping other people, sharing his knowledge. He gets little badges, he gets little electronic badges for the number of hundreds of times that he's helped other people. And so he's an example of someone who is out there doing for free what Microsoft could pay people a lot to do, which is manage the community. Now there is a whole community management digital engagement team behind the scenes at Microsoft that makes sure that people like Lindley really do get supported, that as soon as information is released, that information is shared with the MVPs first, and making sure that they're on the cutting edge, that they have access to Q&A information. I really enjoyed when Sherman was awarded I think it was like the armchair quarterback player of the year given to a non-quarterback. So he was given an MVP award that typically does go to a quarterback or a running back. And he was one of the first non-QB, non-RB MVPs voted by the community. And so when he started doing Campbell's Soup ads, how many of you have seen a Sherman, and who's he with? His mom. So, just really tapping into, oh, that's so sweet. We think of that story of how his mom fed the whole community, and it just has all these positive associations. So most of us can't afford to have a Sherman on our payroll, but this is my friend, and she, before she released her book, before Julie released her book, she posted this picture of Richard Sherman before, it was like before the Super Bowl too. And so many of us were up on Facebook posting that we liked that picture and how excited, and there's just all this buzz and energy around the Seahawks. And then she followed it up with, hey, I'm looking at book design A versus book design B. What do you guys think? I really want to do this one. And we all voted for the other one. And so now we got engaged in, oh, she's releasing a book. How cool. What's that about? It's about parenting in the digital age. I think I could use that. And so you think of what assets you do have. And part of that is, what do you like to do? What do you like to talk about? What is an area that you feel like, if I had a little bit more data, if I contributed to the story, this could be more fun, this could be more enjoyable, this could be more enriching. Okay, so this is the little exercise. So if any of you are online and you want to go up to LinkedIn company Cayman-Consulting right now, add your comment. So if you have any tip, or if you liked any tip that you heard today, and if you're going to say something really horrible, tell me now instead, and I'll weave it into the next presentation. Okay. And so, in summary, really do try out these top 10 tips. I've got a lot more structured information and data-based information and hierarchical information to share too. And so we're going to post that up to the Cayman blog, and I'll continue to edit the digital marketing Wikipedia page too, which still leaves a lot to be desired. But do integrate digital engagement with your work or with your passion. Do reach out to your marketing colleagues who likely are focused on a very narrow area and educate them about what would help you. Because I suspect that those digital marketing colleagues or your marketing colleagues don't really have a sense of what's really going on in your area of the business and how could they be of more value. Start simply, so really do go check out your company online presence or your area of expertise and contribute to that community. Most people have only contributed in a negative sense, or not that that was negative, but something that you really hated, or with your close-knit connections. And I encourage you to think about and to really go out and start sharing with whatever it is your passion is, because I guarantee you what you have interest and expertise and interest in, double interest, is something that the world needs, and I encourage you to engage and start now. Engage with your audience. There's so much segmentation opportunity now online, as we heard from the example earlier about kind of local. You can do so much with really segmenting your audience and seeing what's going on digitally and using the business intelligence and the analytics that are available. Be realistic and plan for that sustainability. Think globally. Prepare for that speed, timing, and seasonality. And especially with, this is an area where I'm always challenged when you look at Yammer or Twitter, is to really give a lot of thought to what's going to be most impactful. So less is more. And really think about maximizing for mobile. That's becoming a requirement. Even if you think that your customers aren't on mobile today, I bet they are. And I bet that something about your company's website, your products, your services probably looks really bad online. At least I've found that with some of the stuff that I have done over time, that I think, oh, it's optimized for mobile, and then I try it out on different devices. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to go back and we need to test this on the newest devices, on the newest browsers. Yes?
Any drawbacks on approaching like a mobile-first strategy?
Yeah, any drawbacks with mobile-first? Yes, I think that one of the key things is whether your customers are really there, whether you're planning to invest hugely in an app that customers aren't going to download. So that's one of the things I've seen is folks are investing in a whole custom app with all the bells and whistles, and yet like my AT&T, I have all these apps from AT&T, and yet what I want is more battery life. So really think about that ROI of, is there something I can do that is just better designed for that base functionality. What do my customers most want to do online? Is it looking for directions? Is it buying? And if it's digital wallet, if it's purchasing, then optimize that to the simplest, cleanest experience. So especially in digital wallet purchasing, there's a huge drop-off rate of people browsing with the intent to purchase, going to the shopping cart, and then if they have to do too many complex clicks, there's just this huge drop-off rate. So really think about clean, simple experiences that actually work on the phone, that actually solve a business problem. And don't try and boil the ocean and do like 20 cool apps and assume everybody's going to download it and use it, because they're probably not going to. So yeah, definitely start reasonably and think about your audience and your market. And then focus on that lifetime customer value and align with your values. So we each as individuals have things that we really value and types of work we won't do because it's so in contrast with what we value and what we're here on planet Earth to do. Your customers similarly have values, and your business, your company, you probably have value statements. But in reality, you know within your project group what you guys are really about, what you're trying to accomplish. And finding that sweet spot between your team or project values, your personal values, and the customer values, there's an opportunity there, and there's a digital engagement and digital marketing opportunity there. So think about what that sweet spot intersection is. And then last but not least, do find those most valuable players. So find the folks like your Richard Sherman, like your Lynn Meslier. After I had the opportunity to engage with him when I was consulting to Microsoft, he ended up naming his firstborn Alice after he had worked with us, and I just thought, wow, that's so sweet. And maybe it has nothing to do with me. Maybe they have another relative or friend that's Alice. But even though he's based off the coast of South Africa on the island of Mauritius, he is able to provide huge value to Redmond Microsoft and Worldwide Microsoft and then worldwide customers, just because he has that passion to share his knowledge. And I bet each of you have some passion, some knowledge that might not be fully tapped into with what you're doing in your day jobs today. So I encourage you to think about how you can bring that to your day job, or when you get home, think about, well, I'm really interested in this other area. Search on that, see what's out there, and see if you have something to contribute. So with that, did anyone go up to LinkedIn company, Cayman Consulting, or up to LinkedIn Mary Alice yet? Okay. Okay, so this is a pretty powerful battery pack. So knowing that the #1 thing that people want is more battery, you have more batteries. So mobile power.
I was waiting for the assignment, actually do something. I thought you would say something, not to go and do this.
Yes, yes, yes.
I didn't want to post this. People should be careful posting on Wikipedia for their company. It is against their conflict of interest policy, and several companies have been outed by people tracing who did what and went, oh look, here's this self-serving edit. So it's supposed to be a neutral point of view, and that doesn't mean there aren't a lot of people who do it. But you are walking a fine line. If you read their policy, they're like, well, if you're correcting a factual error, that's okay, blah, blah, blah. However, if it's on a topic relevant to the business that you're knowledgeable about, like digital marketing, 100%, there's no problem there. But if you're being paid money, they don't like that.
That is a great point, Nick, and I should make that even clearer. And I should have said that. Totally great point. And in fact, there's probably an army of people if you're with a larger company and at least one super passionate, opinionated person who owns that company presence and company brand who doesn't want you posting anything, even if you think it's helpful. So it's a great point. For those of you who are with smaller organizations who maybe not even have that kind of policy, or again, your areas of passion. So that's great, Nick, to point out that it's the functional areas or the areas of business or the areas of interest. Those can be the great places to contribute. Yes?
So how do you deal with content that needs to be compliant with certain aspects of the law. You can't post certain things in certain countries. You can't post,
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think most of my active digital engagement paying customers have been in North America. We do a lot overseas, but not as much. Like, for example, with China. So one of the things that we had to do is look at where was all the data going to be housed. So as we got that digital marketing data of open rates, click-through rates, that all had to be housed on servers in China. So we knew, okay, we have to comply. We can't even pull any of that data back here. So it's a great point that, especially if you're dealing with particular countries, that there are a lot of strict laws. And then it's true in, for example, in Europe. So I'm glad you brought this up because I actually do have examples, even though my customers have paid me from North America, but and paid Cayman from North America. So one of the things that we found in Europe is that there are much stricter do not contact laws that apply to email, apply to getting texts, apply to Twitter feeds. Anything that is going to touch that customer is part of what we're familiar with in terms of a do not call rule. And so essentially in the US, you can reach out to customers over time, even if they haven't purchased from you within an X period of time. Within Europe, it's much, much tighter and rigid. You can only contact somebody once in these parameters, and it has to be transactional in nature. So that's another reason why I brought up that comment in the earlier discussion around subscriptions and bills, is that if a message is embedded within a transactional or billing or outage or something that's a functional business communication, it shouldn't be super promotional in nature, but you can tell customers, hey, if you're interested in more battery life, we now offer this great additional feature. Our newest phones have this super battery life. You can embed that within a transactional communication and be okay in most parts of Europe for having repeated conversations with your customers. But if you just try and send them purely a promotional message, you could actually put your entire company at risk. And so that is another great point that taps into what Nick was pointing out, which is please don't go try and do all these things for your company on your own if this is not all your job. So do reach out to your marketing colleagues, do reach out to your team members who know who the brand manager is, who know who some of the digital engagement and community managers are, and find out what they're trying to achieve and see if there's some synergy between your biggest business problem, the problems, needs, and wants you're trying to address, and what they are. And I bet you there's some synergistic opportunities that you can take those first small steps and engage and get some benefit. Any other questions? All right, yes?
Could you talk a little bit about how these different areas of digital marketing, how they should be integrated within a brand, and when it's okay to use, say, voice A over voice B, and where that's most appropriate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So how do you integrate digital marketing into brand, and when do you use voice A versus voice B? So one of the key things is to know your audience. And that one of the digital engagements that I had an opportunity to work on early on was a very technical audience. So the audience that we knew that needed to be reached were all very tech savvy. They didn't like pure advertising or pure marketing. And some of the first writers we got to work on some of the blog content were kind of traditional content authors, traditional writers. And we immediately got feedback that, what's this marketing crap? Who are, and we started losing customers because they felt like they were marketed to. And so that's a case where we just immediately started getting, let's get people who are the MVPs, who really know their stuff, who are technically deep and have something to add. So more of a case study type approach. and really looking at, okay, what were the metrics? What was cool about the technology? And so really think about and uncover who are your customers, which is, again, very traditional marketing. What is it that they value? What do they want to hear? What's going to help them overcome their problems, their needs, or their wants, or meet their wants, exceed their wants, and then have your digital marketing presence align with ultimately your organization's brand and your company brand, and have it feed that. And another component too is if you have brand equity, like Microsoft, I remember Steve Ballmer way back talked about how it really was hurting the brand equity when everybody was trying to market all their own stuff back in the days when it was Exchange was marketed separately from SQL, which is marketed separately from Office. And so now there's this whole, Office 365 is a whole suite. All the launches are integrated together. And it's something that people don't have to think about now. What version of SQL and what version of Exchange? So there's always a value in thinking about the big picture and tying it together. Now in contrast, when Microsoft started with the Xbox, that was kind of a new marketplace. Let's go to cool consumers. Let's reach some of these teenagers. And the value of reaching those customers with a totally different brand that those teenagers didn't even associate. I know my kids didn't even know it was a Microsoft product at first when we bought an Xbox. And so there's that disaggregation that's important when you're trying to separate from that brand. Yes?
Also, I think on a related note, what's happened is in the last few years, there weren't those many blogs a few years ago. There wasn't as much internet content, and so the primary tactic became just to put content out there, just any article, any content, and if your website has a high domain authority, for example, and your articles get into search results very quickly. And now what's happened is because of just the massive ton of content out there, unless you put out good quality content that speaks to your brand, to your customers, and speaks your voice, it doesn't even stand out actually. And, and so people are being forced. A lot of your traditional content marketing authors and writers are being forced to get more technical, get more subject matter expertise, and write fewer content, fewer articles, smaller articles, but more high quality stuff.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I agree that there really has been a shift from quantity and just showing up to having the quality and having it be very targeted and very specific and really meeting a need. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So with that, I really want to thank each of you. I know you've got busy schedules and important work to do, and I just really appreciate this opportunity to interact with you all and come back to Foster. So thank you for having me.